And Russia has rejected key proposals floated by President-elect Trump's team to resolve the war in Ukraine. The Kremlin dismissed ideas like delaying Ukraine's NATO membership and bringing in European peacekeepers. Russia's foreign minister called the suggestions unacceptable, showing just how far apart Moscow and Washington remain on resolving the conflict. And this isn't just about Ukraine. The U.S. is navigating critical conflicts all across the globe. Here's a look at the major hotspots where American involvement is shaping global security. These are regions where stakes for U.S. foreign policy are high and where the incoming administration will likely face some tough choices. Here to help break it all down is Commander Kirk Lippold, former commanding officer of the USS Cole. Commander, it's great to have you this morning. Thank you for being here. You know, Russia rejected Trump's peace proposals for Ukraine. As you know, this was a big campaign promise. What does the rejection tell you about the challenges he'll likely face in resolving this conflict once and for all?
Well, Kelly, from the beginning, what it has really shown is that Putin and Russia are still unreasonable in their demands. In violation of international law, they invaded Ukraine. And at the end of the day, they are unwilling to negotiate from their perspective what they see as their national security interests. But to the rest of the world, they're viewing it as something that is totally unreasonable, that has resulted in the deaths of thousands of innocent men and women.
You know, some argue we should avoid never-ending wars. How would you recommend the U.S. balance, though, staying engaged while avoiding overreach?
Well, I think the first thing we have to look at is this term that has been invented called the never-ending war. The reality of it is the United States and other countries don't have a voice sometimes in whether you get involved in a conflict. Your enemy gets a choice in that. And especially in the case of Russia or in the case of what may be looming in China. I think what President Trump is really going to look at is many people say he's a transactional leader. I think he is bigger than that, and it is a much broader picture we need to look at. He believes in accountability. If nations that we're going to work with as our allies say they are going to do things, whether it is by business agreements, economic agreements, treaty agreements for the military, we expect them to live up to them. The United States always lives up to our agreements. Other countries don't, and President Trump should hold them accountable to that regard. And in the case of Europe right now, they need to step up. This war is the largest conflict on their continent since World War II, and yet continuously they have held back. They have wanted the U.S. to be in a leadership role. Perhaps they need to take a larger role themselves to ensure that Ukraine has the tools it needs when they need them, with the ability to use them where they need in order to push Russian forces back. Let them start taking the leadership role for their own security interests, where the United States can stand back, still be a leader, but not tell them what to do.
Well, let's touch on this for a minute, because I think critics of the president's foreign policy say that it isolates our allies. And, you know, do you think this may create openings for Russia and China, say, to expand their influence in a meaningful way?
I don't believe it will. When you look at it, again, President Trump, having had the experience of 4 years in office, to see the interactions that we have with the international community, to see some of the results that came out of his demand that the countries in Europe and NATO live up to their 2% GDP commitment to their defense. They all chose to raise it. But once he was out of office and we saw President Biden came in, the two principal countries that could really make a difference, Germany and France, immediately backed off those commitments. The U.S., along with the United Kingdom, they're the ones that have given Ukraine the weapons they need. But again, the U.S., fearful of escalation, has held Ukraine back. I think at the end of the day, President Trump is going to demand accountability. Live up to your commitments. And by the way, we will still be and should be a global leader. We have the depth, both economically and militarily, to do that right now. But those inroads that you talk about with Russia and China, they will be made if we cede that leadership role. So having a leadership role does not mean that we have to get involved in wars, but it does mean that we need to ensure that others have the tools necessary to defend themselves.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.